Period. Or actually, you know what, man? That might not have been a dog. A service animal doesn't have to be a dog. Right now, in this country, and probably in others as well, miniature horses are being used as service animals as well.
Man, she could have went in there with a goat or a monkey.
Doesn't matter.
A ferret. She could have had a service ferret. And you're right. It doesn't matter.
As long as it has the service dog vest, no questions may be asked.
Well, and for them to imply that PTSD is not a valid reason to have a service dog, first of all, it's not any of their, it's not their place to decide that.
They don't get to make that judgment call.
No. The two young ladies were absolutely right. This was not their problem.
Right.
This was the restaurant's problem, period.
I saw, after you posted the article, I saw in some of the comments, there were people saying that these women didn't handle this right.
They didn't handle it right.
What part of they have every right to go wherever they want to with those dogs? What part of that do you not understand?
If these veterans also having PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that also implies that these are wounded warriors.
Mm-hmm.
These are people that have obviously had to deal with some pretty horrific stuff.
If they've got service dogs, if they've acquired PTSD through their service to our country, they acquired it on behalf of not just you and me, but those employees at that Long John Silver. Then let's get that right back out there. This was Long John Silver's in Anniston, Alabama.
I was ashamed that this happened in our hometown. We live right here at a place. The base has since closed, but for the majority of mine and your life, we were living next door to Fort McClellan.
We still live within almost literally, I could probably throw a rock and hit the Anniston Army Depot.
That's right. And Fort McClellan is still occupied by, our National Guard troops. We have Homeland Security out there training. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, we have a dog training facility right there on Fort McClellan.
Yes, they trained the dogs. As a matter of fact, at my place of business, which is directly across the street from that facility, they sometimes bring their dogs around to socialize them, and they let the business where I work allows them to come in and do that.
And you would think that in a town that has been largely military,
and let's face it, man, this town has made a lot of money off military personnel.
Oh, that's putting it lightly, man.
When Fort McClellan, demilitarized, this town took a humongous economic hit because of that.
Man, did we? But we still haven't recovered from it.
There are lots of businesses in this town that are properly grateful to the military,
right?
And who understand that without the business of the military personnel in this area, they would not have such successful businesses.
That's right. And, you would think, though, that in a town, as associated with the military as we are, that nothing would, there would be nothing too good for our military.
Or you would think that at least there would be
veterans.
That there would at least be some understanding of PTSD.
Really?
Some acknowledgement of it, because there's a whole lot of people in this town, yourself included, may I say. Just, if Marty gets a little crazy sometimes, hey, there's a lot of people in this town who are affected by PTSD, and their family members are affected. You would think there would be a little bit more recognition of, what's at stake here.
And who are you to decide what is a disability and what is not? Who are you to decide that unless you're blind, you don't get to bring your service animal in my place of business? I mean, really? These people, need a serious education in etiquette as it pertains to our military veterans. If it weren't for our military veterans, odds are a lot of the people in this country would be speaking another language. We owe these people a great debt, and the least we can do is not give them flack when they come into our places of business with their service animals. Now, since all of this broke off, and by the way, this story took off like a rocket this morning. It all, as far as Casey and I are concerned, for honest answer, this story went viral. It enraged a lot of people. There were a lot of phone calls made, a lot of emails sent to Long John Silver, not just the Anniston branch, but to the corporate office as well. And the owner of this particular franchise has since released a statement to the effect that, we're very, very sorry that this happened. This is all a great big misunderstanding. My employees were, they didn't understand the law.
Whose fault is that?
Whose fault? Yeah, whose fault is that? And, it's like we said before we went on the air. Unless I hear the words, that manager has been fired, your apology means nothing.
Yeah, that apology is nothing.
Hollow words. Everyone involved in this should have immediately been relieved of their position.
And the owner of the business is at fault for not making sure that their employees understood the law. Because, frankly, if you own a restaurant, you have to know that there is an exception. I mean, the health department doesn't allow, in most places around this country, most health departments don't allow pets in a restaurant unless they are service animals.
That's right.
And, that's a big part of the law. Do you know, man, that I actually had a knowledge of that particular law when as long ago as 1983 and 1984, when I got my first job working in fast food for a different restaurant chain. I was made aware of, of the law pertaining to animals, that there was exceptions. Nobody else could bring a pet into that restaurant except people who had a service animal. And I was told what to look for.
Well, these days, they have the like I said earlier, these dogs have a vest that very clearly says dog. Service dog, or service animal. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not like that it couldn't be seen. This is just a case of someone not caring. They did not care. This manager, she didn't care why they had their service dogs.
She didn't like dogs.
She didn't like dogs. So therefore, they had to go. This is becoming all too big a problem now that the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts have started to wind down and our warriors are starting to come home. I'm starting to see more and more stories like this pop up where some veteran with their service animal is getting slighted in some way. Or, not just veterans with service animals, but veterans in general are not getting the respect that they so richly deserve.
And now, am I correct in this? I think I read this in the story that the two ladies are filing charges.
Yes, they did go to the police station. They did file a police report. And I sincerely hope that they follow through with this. I sincerely hope that they do press charges. It may just be a little misdemeanor. It may just amount to a fine or something. But I truly, in my soul, I want this manager to pay in some way. She should have to pay for her callousness, because that's all it was.
Well, callousness is one thing, but knowing that these two women had PTSD, you think you could just take that back? You think they don't feel awful small?
Yeah.
That they weren't made. They were made to feel awful small. You
and had to
can't just
stand
brush
outside
that
on a
off.
busy street with the
Talking
with,
to the
yeah,
police, man.
with their little lights flashing and everything, and people driving by and seeing them and pointing.
So, how are they supposed to just brush that off and go, oh, well, no harm done?
Yeah. Oh, well.
I'm sure this does their post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm sure it just does that. Just the world of good.
Well, I sent an email myself to their corporate headquarters.
Long John Silver's?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. I put I put a comment on their Facebook page. Not going to let this one stand. At some point, we talk a lot about taking our country back. Going back to our traditional values that this country, had. And this is one of the, to me, this is a step towards taking our country back, reminding these people how we got here. Were it not for our veterans, we wouldn't have the freedoms that we get to enjoy. We need to bring back respect.
Yes, and how about a little compassion for somebody who's less fortunate than yourself?
Yeah.
It is important to remember this sort of thing when you're talking about veterans. But man, where's the human compassion for another person?
Yeah. Well, see, this country's starting to let that, or it's starting nothing. This country has been letting, compassion slip for a long, long time. There's a lot of people that are anti-military in this country. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
And even though there's a lot, they're still part of a very small minority, though. Yet these small minorities always seem to get their way. We talked about this with the atheists last week. They're a minority, but they seem to get their way all the time.
The tyranny of the majority, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, the tyranny of the majority is a factor. It does exist in this world. But at the same time, how come a minority of people who just don't like dogs get to behave this way? Well, the fact is, they don't get to get away with this. The law says you don't.
Well, we're also talking about law under Attorney General Eric Holder. So, we've over the past 4 or 5 years, we've come to see that some laws get enforced, some don't. It just really depends.
He's heard about law. He just doesn't want anything to do with it.
Right.
That's for other people, not our Attorney General.
I just had to bring this story out tonight. It flew all over me this morning. Like Casey said, I'm a veteran too. I'm a vet too, and whenever I see veterans getting the shaft, it makes my blood pressure peak.
Well, see, the thing is, and I don't know if we can remind people of this enough. If it wasn't for our military veterans, we might be speaking German or Japanese right now, or Russian.
Yeah.
Okay, as a matter of fact, right before I didn't know about this story, until I got off my day job today.
Right.
But shortly before I left work, I was talking to a veteran, and he left, and I realized that I hadn't thanked him for his service before he left. But his wife came back in and brought the shopping cart back into the store. And I went up to her and told her, I said, "Ma'am, you please make sure that your husband knows that I'm grateful that that I'm actually speaking English now. And if it hadn't been for folks like him, I would be speaking German, Japanese, or Russian. And I don't like any of those languages. And please, tell him thank you for me."
Well, and tonight, you know what you guys could do for us?